the call. Brian is a wealth of information. He's got a good background and experience in the used vehicle marketplace. Brian, what do you got to share with us today?
Well, I was just going to talk about ice cubes since Ron started that. So
Yeah, right.
yeah, that's funny because actually we've used the analogy of they're like ice cream cones. So that works too. So hold on, just let me just get started here. Just a second. It's only because I have a big audience that I'm having trouble with. Just a second. Can everybody see my screen, or what can you see here?
Yeah, we can.
Okay. I think you're not getting the full on presenter view, but yeah, what I'd like to talk about just a little bit is about what we've seen in the market in the last little while. I guess if that slide's going to draw or not. Can you only see part of the?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Hold on. Let's just try this a different way here. Just a second here. Pardon me.
Oh, that's okay. We're car people.
Yeah. Well, I was just thinking nothing I'd rather do on a Monday than spend my time talking to a bunch of car people. So I'm just trying to figure out why my screen is not working.
And you got to go in presenter mode. Oh, there you go. It's doing something.
Yeah, it's doing something. Oh, it's missing all my pictures. Okay, hold on a second here. I've done a whole bunch of Zoom presentations, but I haven't seen, this is like a new glitch that I haven't seen before. So pardon me. If not, I can talk without the slides. Just a second here. Oh, that's very strange. Hold on. I apologize. Just a sec.
No worries. No worries. You want me to put it on? I can
yeah, I sent you my slides. Are you able to put them on the screen? Can somebody else do that?
Try.
Good thing we had a plan B.
Right.
It's like getting into a car. You always had to have a plan to get out of the presentation, right? So. Oh.
Okay, well, that's not the right one.
I think I have it.
How about that?
There you go.
That's the last slide. This is good.
Well, let's go in the right direction, eh?
There we go.
Okay. Oh. Getting there. Yeah, and I've just put a few thoughts together. As I'm sure all of you have been busy trying to reinvent your business, we've been very busy at Canadian Black Book, just trying to keep up with what's going on in the market. And in many respects, for us, it's business as usual, but not. So we're still doing the same thing, which is adjust values every day and do our forecasts for residual values and that sort of thing. And we're relying on our different data sources, which are the auctions, the OEMs, banks, listing data. But as you can well imagine, like after kind of mid-March, certainly things started to slow down as far as sales go, both at retail and wholesale. So, when we started off this year, our expectation was this year was going to be, I hesitate to use the word ordinary, but we thought the year was going to be fairly flat. From a new and used car standpoint, that it was maybe going to be down a little bit. And then beginning of the year, we were up 1.4% nationally. The exception was BC was down, and I'm talking about new car sales. BC was down 7.5%. So some unusual weakness in BC at the beginning of the year. But then, of course, and people on the call probably seen these numbers, and I'm sure living these numbers every day, that March was down by 48%, although the last week and a bit of March, was really down by more than 80%. Then April off by 75, and then back up in May. So from a new car sales standpoint, our concern is right now that we think the industry is looking after quite a bit of pent-up demand from the latter part of March, April, and then the early part of May. So once that kind of passes through, then we'll see kind of what the natural demand is. And it's going to be tough because essentially how we view this from a forecasting standpoint is that we're now in a recession. It's an unusual way to get into a recession, but that's where we're at. If you can go to the next slide. I'm not sure who's doing the, thanks, I owe somebody a coffee for doing the slides. So, I mean, this slide, if any of you studied economics at all, either by choice or were forced to do so, you might recognize these. This is from the first day of microeconomics, but so much of what we deal with at Black Book, and honestly what you deal with in your showroom at the auction every day, is just where do supply and demand meet. So this crisis has manipulated both supply and demand. So initially when it struck in China, we saw parts suppliers shut down. So we were concerned about the supply of new vehicles. And I'm not sure how many of you are concerned about that right now, but I think, for the next probably 6 to 8 months, there could be times when you're not going to get things at the time that you were hoping to get them on the new side. And then on the demand side, of course, we have all these consumers who have very little confidence in the economy. So they're perhaps holding back buying a car. And that's what we're going to struggle with for the rest of the year is really consumer confidence. Assuming that dealerships nationally and even on a regional basis are still allowed to operate without all kinds of restrictions. So we see these demand and supply curves are shifting all the time, and they're affecting price. And as you might expect, there's already been an impact on pricing in Canada for used vehicles. So if you can go to the next one. I'm glad I sent these to you this morning. That was good. Thank you. My PowerPoint just completely froze on me. So so that worked out well. So we publish a monthly index, and if anybody actually wants to get our newsletter, I mean, somehow people can let me know. I'd be happy to sign you up. But we have an index where we track prices every month. So the squiggly yellow line there, just you can see it looks like a ski hill, but at the end there. But that's what we've seen in terms of change in value. So we had a decline in April of 3.3%, but and kind of back to the melting ice cube idea that Ron built up there, is that this is in addition to the regular melting. This is extra melting. And usually we don't see anything like this. Like the changes month over month in value trends are usually, things will shift by 0.2, 0.3. It's never 3. So that's the biggest change we've seen since 2005. And you can see the different segments change differently as well. So, the sporty cars did the worst, and some of the luxury cars didn't do too badly. And we expect differences regionally across Canada too. Like we do look at differences regionally, but generally when you put all the vehicles, the 25,000 some odd vehicles that we track in a pile, this is what's happening to values. And if you sum up the 3%, and the 1%, we're at 7 and change % decline in price, which is I never thought I'd be having a discussion with anybody about that decline in used car prices. And if you go to the next slide, and I'll try and get through this so we have time for discussion. I should mention too, we haven't seen listing prices go down very much. They've been actually quite stable. I don't know if that's just dealership strategy on, well, let's not lower the price, wait till the person comes in. But we haven't really seen listing data go down because we do look at about 500,000 listings in Canada every day. And we use that as a way of also calibrating prices in addition to all the wholesale data we've got. So our outlook for the industry, this has remained pretty constant since I would say the end of March. We haven't changed it that much. That we have 2 scenarios, a most likely one and a severe recession scenario. The only difference is whether the different governments in the different provinces and territories tell us to stay home and they put all kinds of restrictions on dealerships. So that's the only difference between those 2. The most likely scenario is the one that we see happening right now that we're hopeful that's the one we all stick with. But that is a 25% drop in new car sales, so about 500,000 fewer vehicles sold in Canada. We've never seen a decline like that before. We're already at 39% so far this year. So we're expecting, of course, the back part of the year to be better, but still a decline of about 25%. And we're hopeful that we don't get locked up again, either on a provincial basis or a national basis. But and we see used car sales going down as well, but likely not as much, more in the magnitude of 10 to 15%. Because we do think that there'll be some switching behavior as Canadians are trying to be financially frugal, either by choice or they're forced to be. So there'll be some switching from new to used vehicles. And if you can go to the next one. So what do we think will happen for the rest of the year from wholesale prices? So we're already down 7% so far. And where we think the bottom is a drop of about 17%. So poor Ron's ice cube has really watered his drink down. So we use ice cream too, actually. So it's yeah, they're like ice cream. But no, that was actually a really interesting point of view. So I like the idea about taking a loan out at that rate. That's kind of puts it in clear perspective. So we expect overall down by 17 prices, and this is at wholesale, and then an 18% drop for SUVs and trucks and 15% for cars. One of the reasons we see a little bit less drop for cars is we think that good quality, less expensive vehicles, so below say $6,000-7,000, we think they'll get traction in the marketplace in Canada, just because consumers are trying to save as much money as they can in some cases. And we think that 3 years from now, the effect of all this that's going on us right now around us will be fairly minimal on the marketplace. At least that's the hope. And if you can go to the next one. I hope I'm not going too fast. I'm trying to leave time for questions at the end. So yeah, residual value impact. So one of the other things that we do at Black Book, we're doing since the mid 80s, is forecast residual values for leasing. So there's quite a few players in the lease market that use our residuals. The green bars are the adjustments we made back for our May publish of our residuals. So we did lower residuals by quite a bit, from -4 for a 12-month residual out to a little bit less than -1 for the 48-month, no impact on the 60. And this is simply because even though we know that in the future supply will be constrained a little bit because there's 500,000 fewer cars being built and sold this year, we still feel that there'll be some effect of the recession, even felt 48 months from now. We accept that a lot of the unemployment that's happening, and Statistics Canada released their labor report, survey report on Friday with, not a lot of good news in it, but there was some job creation. But we just expect that, 4 years from now, we'll still have some hangover from the recession. And then the next slide, which I think is my last slide. Yeah, which is my last one. Yeah, just something I talked originally in the very beginning about supply and demand. So we see a bit of a looming supply problem in Canada, and not that we'll be short supply of vehicles, because we've had that in the past, where everybody was always outbid at auction by bidders that were shipping to the US. There's actually a little bit less of that going on right now, which is a little bit worrisome from a price standpoint. But we just see, there's, how many are up there? There's 6 different reasons why there's going to be more supply over the next few months. That this was going to be a record year for lease returns, and Ron touched on that. We didn't actually rehearse this at all. I've never met Ron before, but there was going to be a record year for lease returns. So that was still going to happen, and that was going to push prices down in Canada just by itself. But what's happened is so many people doing leasing have deferred leases to come back a little bit later. So now we have a bit of a traffic jam of leases, as well as repos haven't really started yet in Canada in a big way. They're going to start, unfortunately, soon, and that will push more supply to auction, as well as businesses selling assets, which includes rental car companies. So Hertz is bankrupt. We don't know how many cars they have in Canada. I'm assuming it's about 30,000 cars. So there'll be, 30,000 extra rental cars coming to market. As well as right now, there are fewer cars being exported to the US just because of uncertainty over the US market. And then a lot of those bidders, they can bid online, but they can't physically come to the auction. So I mean, in a nutshell, what we see are prices going down about 17% when they hit bottom, which will probably be in about November, and then slowly starting to go back up again. So it's kind of an obvious choice of words, but a bit of a roller coaster in terms of pricing. And it will be different, depending where you are in Canada, and it's going to be different by different vehicle segments. So our team's been working at home since March the 13th, lucky Friday the 13th it was, and we've just been trying to keep up with everything, watching auctions across Canada every day that they're running. So, and those of you participating have seen lots of interesting things at the auction. So crazy high no sale rates at the beginning, and things sort of stabilizing now. So hope I didn't talk too fast. I was trying to leave time for questions there.
Ryan, I got a question for you. So put yourself in the shoes of a dealership or a used car manager. What's your advice over the next, say, 30, 60 days in terms of what they should be doing?
Well, I think that I guess his name's not really Kevin, it's Jason, right? He was talking about wholesaling cars that he didn't want, that if you've got things on your lot that you don't think you're going to move, I would think about wholesaling them now, because we still see prices, it's not going to, we still see another 10% drop. So, I guess if it's linear, then it would be about 2% a month. So, I wouldn't have stuff on the lot you don't think you're going to move real soon, because you're going to get less at it for wholesale 30, 60, 90 days from now than you would today. And then I do think that there is going to be opportunities at auction to buy like a lot of good stuff at good prices. Especially, I'm not sure, probably most people on the call, if they're active bidders at the auction, have been outbid by people that they knew were shipping the car to the States. There's a little bit less of that going on now, which make it a little bit easier to source inventory. But just our expectations are slow declines, really every week, until we think prices will hit bottom in November, December, and then start to go back up again.
So you think prices will be back up by January of 2021, or what's your?
Well, I think they'll start going back up again. How long it'll take, given they've gone down by 17, we've gone down by 17 points. It'll take quite a while. It'll probably, 3 years from now, 36 months from now, we'll still be probably a few points short of getting back to where we started from. And that's assuming that, again, we don't get locked up again. But I'm not a doctor, so I don't know whether there's going to be a second wave of the virus. But we're concerned about that because it just puts a wet blanket on the economic recovery. So lots of things in play. And our forecast for residuals, like, we'll revise that if we see things getting better, but it seems to be pretty much going according to what our projections were.
What about these rental cars, Brian? Do you perceive these things are going to be good values? Would you stay away from them? What's your take on rental cars?
Yeah, I think there's going to be good value there. So Hertz has to sell once, depending on what the arrangement is with their creditors, but all the other rental car players, like Air Travel's down by over 90%. So they're doing kind of two things right now. They're slowing deliveries of vehicles that are still coming, and then we expect they'll also start to liquidate some cars. So maybe there's a good story there for a customer that, okay, well, the reason this car's, you could end up with a rental car that's only got 5,000 on it or 10,000, which is a lot better story than a rental car that's got 87,000 on it and smells like a rental car. So I think there could be some opportunities there. I guess I leave it up to the people on the call. How your market, how people react positively or negatively to rental cars. But I've actually heard of some that have no mileage on them because they were delivered and then not really repoed, but returned right away. So I keep an eye on rental cars. I think that whole landscape's going to operate a little differently for the next year or so, but Yeah, so many of the rental, I mean, there's about 250,000 rental cars on the road in Canada, and they're not making money for the people that own them. So they're going to want to try to get out of those slowly because they know if they dump them all in auction, they'll get, to quote one rental car executive I know, he said, "Oh, we'll just get killed." So they're trying to remarket them slowly. But yeah, it could be a new source of opportunity if you haven't bought rental cars in the past. I think there'll be some ones that have a lot lower mileage than you might have normally seen in the past.
Interesting.
Are those cars being made available directly from the rental car companies? Are they, what percentage do you think are going through the auction?
Yeah, it depends on the rental car companies. Different ones have different strategies. So I know Enterprise in Canada has their own sales force. Actually, some of those companies are our clients as well. Yeah, I think it just depends. We know right now the auctions are backed up. That some of the auctions in Quebec and Ontario, they have a backlog that may take them towards the latter part of July to clear, simply because their staff was at home for so long. So there's a bit of a backup. So yeah, I don't know what percentage will go to auction, but you know, it's typically better for the rental car companies to remarket themselves directly. They usually get better prices that way. So.
Well, appreciate you taking the time today to really give us a snapshot on the Canadian market with data.
No, you're very welcome. I hope everybody's staying healthy, and you know, I should mention a lot of this is temporary. That we'll get back to a much more a reasonable state of being shortly. So,
Anyone else have any questions while we have Brian here?
Yeah, Brian, on your Black Book guide, I guess, for dealers that do use it, and you're predicting a 70% decline, is that reflective in your guide, or do you wait to look at auctions to adjust your guide?
yeah, it's different for residual values. We forecast the future, but wholesale, it's always what we're seeing right now. And usually, how it works for us is that a value, like we're tracking about 25,000 make, models, and trims. A value gets adjusted at least twice a month, and if it's a higher volume vehicle, or quite honestly a vehicle that's a pain,
Yeah.
it gets adjusted more than once. Yeah. So yeah, so the wholesale, and this is why I don't know if you actually use a paper book or use an app, whatever. We always tell people if you're on paper books, please switch to apps, because the data is just fresher since.
Yeah, our stores use the apps, but I'm just like, when you say you're forecasting a 70% decrease in wholesale value, I just wanted to see if that was reflective in your monthly app or if it's not, right? So,
yeah, the 7.3% or so that we've seen already is, but yeah, the anticipated, yeah, we don't forecast for wholesale. It's based on actual. So, yeah, they're just, you know, it's interesting because I think some people expect that maybe values one day, just one day overnight, they'd go down by 20%, but we haven't seen that. Just small little bites, and there's outliers, of course, in that too, but small little bites day over day have led us. And we never thought, I mean, 7%, no, we'd never thought that would happen in such a short period of time. So,
yeah. Thanks.
Hey, Brian, you said that the recovery to the current pricing before COVID is forecasted for the next 36 months. Did I got this right? I missed that information.
yeah, that it would take at least 36 months for prices to get back to where they were. Yeah, and that's simply because of essentially we're in a recession, and it's helpful to prices because everybody on this call are selling fewer new cars right now, so you're restricting the supply in the future. But unfortunately, yeah, we think that 36 months from now, people are still feeling the effects of what's going on right now.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
So Brian, I always like to take guys like you and force your hand to be a retailer, because I know, yeah, because I know that you sit in your office from time to time and say, well, if I were a dealer, this is what I would be doing. And it's a question that Ian asked you a few minutes ago, but I'm going to push you to the next level to give us another golden nugget. So if you were a dealer who normally had a 50 car used vehicle inventory. So you normally carry 50 cars, right? All year last year and the year before, you averaged 40 units a month. You carry 50 in stock. What would you do right now today with your inventory? Would you grow it? Would you shrink it? You know, based on what you anticipate the demand to be and the availability of used vehicles, what would you do with your inventory today?
Well, I mean, I would really focus on days to turn right now because given prices are going down, it's always like tomorrow you'll always be able to buy a car. You should be able to buy a car cheaper at the auction than you did last week. So I try to make sure that even more so than ever that I'm turning what I've got really quickly. And I think picking up on one comment Ron made about using the auction to do recon, if you can get your recon done quicker by the auction or buy vehicles at auction that have already been recon and don't need a lot of work, that would allow you to, you know, get that on the lot and turn it and sell it quickly and replace it. So I think right now in a market where you have basically your cost of goods is going down, you need to really, for years and years, people talked about the importance of turning your inventory, but right now I think it's even more critical. And I think to Jason's point, if you get, not to pick on poor Lexus, but if you get a Lexus that you don't want, just, you know, sell it to, maybe Ron will buy it, just sell it to somebody else. But yeah, I don't think you want any lot rocks right now because, you know, it's going to be worth, if you hang on to it for 90 days, it could be worth, you know, 6-7 points less than what it was on the day that you got it. So no lot rocks right now, please.
Yeah. So just keeping, and it's 10:05, so we'll get off the call here. But just keeping in line with Brian's recommendation that, you know, the car's depreciating almost on a daily basis. You still didn't answer my question, Brian. Would you carry 50 cars or would you carry less?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I would carry change the number of cars I carry. You know, I think the strategy differs whereabouts in the country are too, and what works in your own market. You know, we do expect that there'll be some shortages of certain new cars. So you know, you may be able to substitute like a 1 or 2 year old vehicle, but you know, it just depends. Like I guess if you're a GM dealership and you think there's going to be shortages of trucks, I don't know, that may or may not be true. I don't know. Then, you know, picking up 1 or 2 year old trucks at auction may be a way to switch somebody. But no, I wouldn't change the number. I would just try to make sure inventory velocity was faster than ever before. Just recognizing, you know, your cost of goods are going down every day. And it's going to be like that until, you know, I think until November, beginning of December, until prices start to go back up again.
If I wanted to trust Brian's recommendation, certainly, and watch the shelf life and move my inventory faster in this environment than I would normally try to move my inventory, I would watch my margins.
Yep.
Right. That's what I would do, is I would watch my margins and ensure that there's accountability in place to protect ourselves in this environment. But with that said, positive reinforcement of this conversation is there is pent-up demand, and there will be demand out there. Most likely more demand for used vehicles than there will be for new vehicles. So positive things happening in the marketplace. Unless anyone has anything further, we'll cut it off here today. Brian and Ron, both of you, thank you so much for dedicating your time to come and speak with us. Much appreciated. Anyone else have anything else? Ian?
No notes, and we'll have a video up soon on autohubclub.com, and stay tuned for Friday information on Friday sales sessions for interested dealers.
Very good.